Good afternoon, guys. Welcome to it. This is your favorite show, the show that you learn more and learn extra on. My name is Abram, and I can't wait to have this show, guys. Get it started, and you joining us, of course. Our teacher today is, of course, Cheryl. Cheryl, how are you?
I think we're going to change my name.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we're just going to call me Croak. Yeah, Croak.
Croak,
Yeah,
how are you
or
doing
Frog.
today?
I think, guys, we're going to have a competition to see, going to have a bet. When will my voice become ordinary again?
I think
Yeah.
next week.
I'm hoping, because now, been
It's
to the
getting too
doctor,
much.
it's getting too much. I've got the the whole deep throat thing going, yeah.
You'll be fine. Trust me.
See, cough, cough, yeah.
Sorry about that. Sorry, you'll be fine. Get well
I'll be
soon.
fine, thank you.
What are we doing today?
Guys, we're looking at genetics. We're carrying on from last week. Last week we started with a little bit of the monohybrid crosses, and we're going to carry on with doing all these little examples tonight.
Of course.
Yeah.
Right, to accommodate Cheryl, I think I should speak like this, guys. Make sure that you join us on Facebook. Our Facebook page is facebook.com/LearnExtra, XTRA. Also follow us on Twitter @LearnExtra. Get your friends to be part of our community. Let's help one another, engage and ask questions, because we're here to help one another as team. It's all a team effort. Your notes are already posted for you, because I love you guys. I always want you guys to be ahead. But in case you don't see them or find them on our on our Facebook page, go to learn.mindset.co.za. Many things are going to be coming through the show. We've got exciting competitions and news to tell you about. But the first thing that you should know is that the notes that Cheryl is going to be going over, the ones that you're going to download now on Facebook, are available on a workbook, which is a complete solution for you guys, questions and answers, and it takes you through step by step. You can get it for 139 Rand. Simply email sales@mindset.co.za or ask me on Facebook. I'll tell you. Cheryl, let's do
Am
this.
I ready to go ahead?
Yes.
Welcome, grade 12s. We're carrying on with our genetic series. Those of you who tuned in last week, you would have seen we started to do these almost like math sums, I know, these problem sums called monohybrid crosses. And we're going to carry on this weekend, or this weekend. You see, that's how quickly I want Friday to come. All right. We're going to carry on, all right, with all our showing you crosses. We're going to look at certain, all right, things that you need to know, and what I'm going to work through each individual, all right, with you, each individual sum, if I can call it a sum. If I call it a sum, I think you guys get a little bit scared. If you tuned in last week, and even if you didn't, we're looking at this science called genetics, all right? And genetics is how we pass on our genes, our characteristics. How do they get passed on from generation to generation? Why do people look like they do? And we threw words around last week like recessive traits and dominant traits. We looked at words like phenotype and genotype. We looked at monohybrid crosses. We looked at Punnett squares, etc. And we started giving you these, all right, little scenarios, if I could say it, asking you, okay, if this is the scenario, what is the possibility? What genes are we going to carry through from one generation to the next? And last week we concentrated on complete dominance. And if those of you can remember, complete dominance, all right, was if I had let's start off. If I had a red flower and I had a purple flower, and I said to you that the red was dominant over the purple, okay? That showed you that the one trait was dominant over the other, and we always use capital letters for that. So now today, leading on to that, I'm now going to go on to the next one, which is incomplete dominance, okay? Now, when we look at incomplete dominance, you're going to land up, it's a mixture, all right? If I have a red flower and I have a white flower, now I say to you, it's always very important, I say to you that not one of the colors shows dominance. I'm telling you, I want you to mix. So I've got red and I've got white. If I mix it, what do I get? I get a pink color. So all of a sudden, right, in incomplete dominance, I get 3 traits instead of just 2. Okay? But let's go and do the little scenario that I've set for you, that maybe you can understand it a bit better. Okay, here we go, in my croaky voice. All right, let's read through it. Let me get my color. I think we're on pink. Okay, in a particular type of plant, the color of the fruit, all right, is red, orange, or yellow. Now, as soon as you see that you've got 3 options, All right? There's a red, an orange, and a yellow. Now you should be thinking, it cannot be complete dominance. All right? So I'm going to say there, okay, incomplete. It's determined by the two alleles of a gene. The allele for red fruit, red, is incompletely dominant. So I've told you here, I've said to you, as soon as we're incompletely dominant, I must be thinking of a mix. Over that for yellow, all right? So we know, it tells me red is not dominant over yellow, all right? They both share it. There's nothing. So now, those of you who can think back to when you did the color wheel, let's think. Can you remember when you did the color? What do you get if you add red plus yellow? Aha! I get orange. So red and yellow gives me orange. Okay, so that's where the third color comes in. Now, the next hint that it might be incomplete dominance, right? And be very careful, all right, because when we're going to do codominance as well, they give you two big letters. What do they tell you? They say use R to represent red. So R equals red, and use capital Y to equal yellow. Now already you're saying to yourself, that when I have a recessive, I use a small letter. But I'm not using a small letter here because there's no dominance, all right? They mix. So now, let's start off with our genotypes. What is the genotype of my red fruit plant? My red is a capital R. Now, when my plant, where do I get my genotypes from? I can't only have one characteristic. I got one characteristic from mom, and I got the other characteristic from dad. All right? So I'm red. Red, what am I? Big R, big R. Okay? I can only be that. I'm not orange, and I'm not yellow, and I'm not anything in between. I'm red. Okay, let's go back to the yellow fruited plant. Yellow is capital Y. How many do I have? I must get one from mom and one from dad. Now the orange fruit. My orange fruit, is a mixture. All right, so what do? I take one characteristic from my red, because isn't orange red plus yellow, red and yellow, okay? And because they're both capital letters, all right, it's showing me that one doesn't have dominance over the other, okay? Do you see that? So we got a red, we got a yellow, and we got a mixture in between. Okay, now it tells you two plants with orange fruit are crossed. Now let's start off. When you do this, some of you who are used to it, you can do it quickly. Set it out properly from the start so that you know. So how do we start? We always write the phenotype. The phenotype is, what do I see? Two plants with orange fruit. And if I go a little bit upward, what was my orange? All right, so I've got orange times an orange. Okay, what is my genotype? In other words, my genetic code. Orange was big R, big Y, crossed by big R, big Y. All right, now what happens? Meiosis occurs. Remember, law of segregation. And one trait goes into one sex cell. One Y. All right? One R. That's why I put a circle around it, so that you can see they're each individual cells. Okay, so now I'm going to do the Punnett square, as I said to you. I prefer it. What is my heading? They are my first generation. In other words, what are the children of these two orange? Or can I use offspring? Okay, because obviously they're not human. What will the plants, these two plants, what will their little baby plants look up? So we draw a Punnett square. Okay. So what are my two options? Big R, big Y. There we go. On the other side over here, what is my option? Cell R, cell Y. Then we know in a Punnett square, we bring the two together. So we bring that down and we bring that in. R, R. R, Y, R, Y, and Y, Y. Okay. Now, what does that mean? My question says, draw a genetic diagram. When we draw a genetic diagram, you can use a Punnett. Okay? For those of you who prefer the other method, let me do it for you over here. R, Y, cross R, Y. So you would do first that, R, R, then that, R, Y, R, Y, Y, Y. See, exactly the same answers. Okay? Now I've done the Punnett square, but I haven't answered my question yet. The question says, work out the genotypic ratio and the phenotypic ratio of the offspring. So let's write it out first. So let's start over here. Let me extend here quickly. Okay, so what did I get? Let's look here. These are genotype. Okay, that's my letters. I got 1 R, R, because I want the ratio. I got 2, see, 1. I got 2 R, Y, and I got 1 Y, Y. So what is my genotype ratio? 1 to 2 to 1. Okay. Now my phenotype is not what their genes are. What do they look like? What does RR mean? RR means I've got 1 red fruit. Okay? What does RY mean? I've got 2 orange fruit. Okay? And what does YY mean? I've got 1 yellow fruit. So what is my ratio? 1 to 2 to 1. All right? The genotype and the phenotype are the same. So when I'm talking about an incomplete dominance, if I say black and white, I get gray. All right? If I get black and white, gray. If I get red and blue, I can get purple flowers. If I told you in the beginning, red and white, I get pink. Right? So because none of them dominate, we can then get this mixture. Okay? All right. Are we all right for time?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to start this, then we're going to have a break. Okay?
Okay.
The next one is codominance. Codominance means we share. Incomplete dominance doesn't share. All right? It means that because there's no complete dominance, we actually mix. Here, when we talk about codominance, we actually use blood types as an example of how we mix. All right? So if you have a look at this table over here, all right, you will see that blood type A, all right, blood type A is, if we look at the blood, you should have remembered in grade 10. How do we get it? Blood type A, say, has got these spikes on it. All right? That's A. Blood type B has got those spikes on it. All right, that is B. If you are AB, you have both. One there, one there. So you share. Co-dominance. You share. You've got both A and you got B. Now, those are all dominant. A and B are dominant characteristics. All right, and we show them by using a capital A and B. O's have got nothing on them. All right, that is why in grade 10 you learnt about they are universal donors. Because they've got no shape around them, they can give to any blood. Okay, so when we come to codominance, right, you've got blood type A, blood type B, and blood type AB sharing codominance, right? And then you've got a recessive blood type O. Okay, I think. Let's have the water.
Right. I think you guys also need a glass of water. Stay tuned because after this break, I'll be telling you about awesome giveaways and competitions that we have just for you. Welcome back, guys. Now, if you're between the ages of 18 and 24 and think you are a bright star that the South Africa ought to have, you are well smart enough to represent us. And whether you think you've got big dreams that you can achieve, all you need to do is to enter the Future Stars Awards. It's a competition, guys, so also get your friends to vote for you guys. It's an awesome competition and there are great prizes to be won, including cash prizes, so you don't want to miss out on this one. More details are on facebook.com/LandExtra. But for now, over to you, Cheryl.
Is it another competition that you can apply for?
Yes.
And I'm too old.
But this one is for youngsters.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Bright South African youngsters.
Okay, so now in the last 2 weeks, you've told me I'm old and you've told me I'm BT.
And today, what did I say?
Yeah,
I
you
didn't
told
say
me I'm
anything
old.
today.
It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Can handle it. Can handle it. The youngsters of today, I tell you. All right. Okay, guys, we're carrying on with codominance. Now, codominance, we look specifically at blood groups. Okay? Blood group, we have blood groups A, B, and then we have the blood group AB, where we share, all right, the A and the B molecules, particles that are the antigens that are on the cells. All right? Now, blood group O, technically, all right, is a recessive trait. So if we have a look at, all right, if we have a look at how we write it, can you see here? For A and B, all right, for A and B and AB, you have got a variety of genotypes that you can use. So because B, if you have a look here, for blood group A, you can be a pure breed, AA, or you could be AO, all right, hiding that recessive. So when we get to an O, O is a pure breed. Now, I'm just going to do a simple genetic cross for you guys now. But if you go to the notes, what I've put in there, very often the question that they like to ask is that the one of that they're not sure there's a baby in the hospital and the babies have been swapped, all right? And if they know the blood types of the parents, you must then be able to decide which baby belongs to which parent, okay? Now, there's one very simple rule here. One very, very simple rule. If one of the babies is O, if one of the babies is O, right, the parent, doesn't matter which one, no parent can ever be AB, all right? Because A and B are dominant. So you're always going to, you need to get an O. One of the parents can be A, one of the parents can be B, one of the parents can be O. But to have blood group O, no parent, and that's a hint, if they tell you that one of the parents is an AB, the O baby will never, ever, ever, ever belong to that parent. Okay, so let's look at just a simple one that I've asked you again. And as I said, I'm going to keep going over those monohybrid crosses so that you can get into the habit of knowing. If you know how to set it out, such easy marks. Okay, so let's start. Those words from last week are going to come back as well. A man, heterozygous. All right, heterozygous tells me he's a hybrid. All right, so he cannot be, he's not a pure breed. That means he's got two different alleles. Okay, and a woman with blood group O. They don't tell you what she is because as soon as we see O, we know that O is homozygous. All right, so what they want to know is draw a genetic diagram. As I said, you've got two choices, the Punnett square, all the lines, to help you work out what the possible blood groups of their children would be. Okay, so we start from the beginning. What do we write? The parents, P1. Okay, we write phenotype. In other words, tell me what the question has told you. And the question says, a man heterozygous for blood group B. Let's go to the top here. Heterozygous. Here he's got a B and a B. That is pure breed. That's the same. Heterozygous means one of them must be B and the other one, all right, must be something else. Okay. But they don't tell you he's AB. It tells you he's B. So he is blood group B. Okay? Blood group B. The lady is blood group O. All right, now we know her. All right, we know her. We start off with the I. I prefer doing it like this. She is an O. O is recessive. If it's recessive, it has to be homozygous. It must be a pure breed. Now, the blood group for the man, they tell us that he is heterozygous. So he is B, and what is he hiding? He's hiding a blood group O. All right? So now, that was the genotype. Okay? Now what happens? Meiosis occurs, and each allele splits. So, blood group B is in one cell, blood group O is in another cell, another blood group O, and another blood group O. All right, and I keep on forgetting to put in the one word here. All right, fertilization. In other words, all right, this is, in other words, one of daddy's sperm. This is also one of daddy's sperm. All right, those are two mommy's egg cells. So one of those characteristics is in each. Okay, so they fertilize. And what do we get? What possibility, what chances, or what blood groups could their children possibly have? So we work it out, okay? So here we go. We take down daddy. If you want to here, you can. I don't know how your teacher prefers. If the teacher prefers you to say the male there, so you indicate that that's the males, all right, blood type. And the female's going down. What was she? I-O, I-O. It sounds like one of the dwarfs. Off to work I go. Okay, so let's cross. We know how to cross. We now join. I-B, I-O. All right? I-O, I-O. I-B, I-O, I-O, I-O. All right, so now I've worked out my square. Let me quickly do the other one. As I said, some of you are taught the differently. So let me do it for you so that you don't get confused. All right. I-B, I-O, I-O, O blood type, I-O, I-O, right, and I-O. Hang on a second. I have done 1, 2, this over here. Okay, all of a sudden I'm not sure. I've done that one, then I've done that one, and that one. All right, and I get I-O. All of a sudden, I've got a different, sorry. Guys, quickly, just hang on a second. That's why I hate this one, because I always got confused with the lines. Let's start. Okay, so we got I-B. Okay, so it's I-B, O, all right. Then we go. So we got one, I-B, I-O. Then we got the next one. There we go. I-B, I-O. There we go. I-O, I-O. Sorry, all these lines here. Okay. All right. That's why I like the Punnett square. You don't get too confused. Now, the question says, all right, work out the possible blood groups of the children. So if we have a look here, what do we now write? We go back to square one. What were the genotypes? Okay, 50% were blood group that. What does that mean? And 50% were that. What does that mean? So that's the phenotype. So what is my phenotype? 50% chance of their children being blood group B, and 50% of the chance of their children being blood group O. All right, okay, and there I've said it at the bottom again. If one of the parents is AB, all right, if one of the parents is AB, the child will never have an O group, okay? So remember that in the back of your mind, when you're given one of the problems, who does the child belong to? Okay, the next one, sex determination. All right, what does that mean? That means that mommy has got 2 X chromosomes. Let's start. I've already done it for you because we want to once I get through it quickly. But when we have a female, let's look at the cross. Females have 2 X chromosomes. Males have an X or a Y. So what does that mean? That means that during meiosis, those separate. Okay? So a female can only be an X. But the male, when I separate these cells, that means I can have female sperm or I can have male sperm. Okay? Because remember the males, when we did reproduction, the males are going to determine the sex of the baby. Now, what is the chance? We're talking purely from a, all right, you've got these genotypes and these. What are the chances of you, all right, when you're going to have a child, what is the chance that it's going to be a boy and what is the chance that it's going to be a girl, right? It's the same genetic cross, right? When we do the crosses, when we do the Punnett square, all right, as you can see over there, here we got the lady, she is XX. Here we got the gentleman, he is XY. So we can have a girl, we can have a girl, we can have a boy, we can have a boy. And that's why I put it in nice big letters. It's a 50% chance. Yes, environmental conditions can change. There's certain things that you can do that you can try and ensure that it's a boy, it's a girl, etc. But from a genetics point of view, there is a 50% chance of it being a boy and 50% chance of being a girl. So when they ask you, if the question is, how is sex, all right, how is the sex of the child determined, you can then set up your whole thing again, all right, showing you exactly each of the steps, right, the Punnett square again. So where's your phenotype? Male, female, genotype, all right, XX and XY. Okay, which leads us to our next, all right, our next question. These questions, right, very often, the information that is given to you, all right, is very, very important. So whenever or blurb, some of you, if you want to call it that, all right, when you read what is asked of you, it is of the utmost importance that you are able to read it carefully, because it gives you little hints as to what is asked of you. Okay. Now, what is a sex-linked trait? Go back when we did DNA, when we did meiosis, and last week, all right? We spoke about this thing called a karyotype. And what does that mean? Each individual, okay, I'm going to use the humans. We have got 22 pairs, okay, not 22 pairs, all right, yes, we actually 22 pairs, right, of what? Of autosomes. All right, what does that mean? So basically, 44 of my chromosomes, all right, are homologous. They look alike. The last pair on number 23. Number 23 tells me two things. It can either be an X and an X. These are my sex chromosomes, because what does it tell me? I am a female. Or it tells me, like this one over here, that is it an X and it is a Y. Now, that is important. When I showed you this diagram over there, all right, the size of the Y chromosome is much, much smaller than the female. Very often when I draw it in class, I draw it like this, all right? And all the girls start to laugh, and all the boys are like, oh. It's important. It's important because that male chromosome is so small, he cannot carry certain genetic characteristics. All right? Now, what we've looked at throughout all of the monohybrid crosses so long, we looked at that there were 2 traits from each. What did I mean? All right? When I looked at my sex cell, or when I looked at a cell, all right, and say I said, for example, let's have a look there, I said red cross with blue. Right? Each time I said that, I gave 2 characteristics for the red, and I gave 2 characteristics for the blue. Okay? Now we have a problem. Because this X chromosome, and we call it sex-linked because these are traits that you're going to find on the sex chromosome. Right? And your teacher probably would have discussed hemophilia with you, which is a bleeding disorder, right? And might have discussed color blindness with you. Now, what does all of this mean? What this means is that because the male cannot carry another trait, all right, he is going to get certain diseases, all right, that is carried from his mom, and he's going to get it. Okay, let me show you how, if we work it. When we look at the chromosome, all right, I want to show you here, we're going to work with hemophilia. Okay. When we work with sex chromosomes, one thing, remember, the Y chromosome cannot carry two genetic traits, okay? So the Y is blank. So look here. When I'm talking about hemophilia, a woman, now let me go to the side here. Let me carry on over here. I'm going to just take this out. Okay. Okay. So let's start. I do this because which chromosomes am I working with now? My sex. Okay. have a look what I'm doing. These are the possibilities, all right, for hemophilia. Now, if you have a look, you will see, right, if a woman is normal, she is a capital H, okay? Hemophilia is a little h. So now, have a look at the possibilities, because I can find a letter on each of my chromosomes. So, I can be H, pure breeding, homozygous, all right? Or I can be normal, but because I've got a nice big X, what am I doing? I can hide, all right, the hemophilia, or I have hemophilia. So for the woman, we've got 3 chances. We've got 3 possibilities, okay? For the males, now remember, nothing. The Y cannot carry anything. Okay, so what have we got? I've got 2 letters. So I've only got 2 possibilities. My male can be normal, nothing on the Y, or he can be a hemophiliac. There's no heterozygous traits for sex-linked. And I need water again.
You need water again.
Yes.
Let me rescue you.
Yeah.
Guys, thank you for your questions and your comment. And a big shout out to Shihlamari Sochauke, who's watching the show and enjoying it. See you guys after this break. Welcome back, awesome guys. Now another big shout out is to Dora Chauke, who's watching the show with Shihlamari Sochauke. Big shout out to you guys. I've got some questions for you, Cheryl.
Okay, Abram.
First one is from Savio, saying, when you're doing a genetic diagram, does it matter if you put phenotype or genotype first?
No, doesn't matter that where you put, if you have genotype or phenotype first. It doesn't matter at all. I just happen to write genotype first because your answers are actually in the genotype form. So that's just taking them from the Punnett square, and then I take those genotypes and I put them into the phenotype. In other words, what do they look for? Doesn't matter at all.
Okay, here's another one from Ndamulo Mbue. Hey, can you please use another color except red? Okay, I think on screen
Does it come up as red?
that comes as red. You know, talking about color scheme, so
Maybe
you
he's
should know
blind.
about this. Otherwise, others, it's comments. I'll give you a question as it comes through.
Can I carry on?
Yes, you can carry on. Or should I give you this one? Okay, here's Figure say, my favorite subject, I wouldn't miss it for anything. I do understand. Thank you, guys. A question from Louis Tamela. What is the genotypes and the phenotypes of the F1 if a red flowering rose is crossed with a white flowering rose plant?
Okay, now you need to be specific, right? Are they? Who's the guy? Who's asked the question?
Louis.
Lewis.
Mm.
So Lewis squared.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Lewis.
Tamela.
All right. You need to now. When your question, when you asked me, you should have told me 2 things. All right. When you cross a red and a white, now remember what I say to you. The question will lead you to, if a homozygous red flower or a red flower cross with a white flower, okay, now we've got that. Now there's one more little bit of information that your sentence needs to give me. Number 1, your sentence will say, the flowers do not show complete dominance. Okay, so remember what I said. That's going to be the key. The hint is in the question. All right? So if I cross a red flower and a white flower, all right, what will the first generation be? Now they've got to tell you one more bit of information. They've got to tell you, is it complete dominance? So is red dominant over white, which means that I've only get red and white flowers, or are they going to tell me it's incomplete dominance? As soon as they say the word incomplete dominance, or one does not show dominance over the other, then I must mix. My red and my white will then be a pink. Okay.
Okay.
All
Another
right.
one. Okay, this one is from Bongane Mabas. I'm enjoying the show, but it seems as if I don't understand some of the things, and I'm watching the show with my brother. Okay, you're gonna understand, Bongane. If you don't understand,
Tell him what he must. He
ask
must
us.
explain
We're
what he
here
wants.
to help you.
Yeah.
All right. Another one from Matavata. Is there a difference between codominant genes and incompletely dominant genes?
Yes. All right. Codominance, all right, is when we look at codominance, we actually look at blood type, right? If we look at blood types, there are 4 options. There is an A, there is a B, there is dominant, and there's recessive. Okay, so when we look at codominance, there is a dominant factor and there's a recessive factor. But because 2 of those dominant factors, they can share, we have dominant, we have some codominant, and then we have recessive. So we actually got 3 different things that we can have. Whereas incomplete dominance, all right, incomplete dominance is a mixture, all right. I know AB is a mixture, but it's not, it's sharing the dominance. Incomplete means because we don't have a complete, we mix together, all right, to get the third. So a red and a white becomes a pink. I know they're very similar. It is actually, for the way to explain it, it almost sounds like it's the same. But codominance, we speak to, as I said, the blood types, where we have a dominant and we have a recessive. But we also have a third option, codominance. Whereas incomplete dominance, we don't have a dominant and we don't have a recessive. All right? There's no dominant and no recessive. Hence, we mix.
All right, talking about the blood type, there was a question from Lefa asking, why is blood group 0 blood O homozygous?
Because it is a recessive trait.
Okay.
Believe it or not, as I said to you, codominance, our 4 blood groups, A and B, are actually dominant. O is recessive. Okay, so if you are O, recessive traits are always homozygous. Hey, giggling Gertie.
Cool.
Oh, you're right now, because you
Yes.
got the giggles now. So James and all of them in there. Yes. All right. Okay, we're busy with our sex-linked traits. Now, our sex-linked traits, as we said to you, all right, is on that 23rd pair of chromosomes, our gonosomes, where we are either XX or XY. Now, the Y is very, very small, all right? The size of it, the size of the Y means that we can't carry certain traits. So when it comes to certain diseases, men are more prevalent, right, to getting them than females. Let's read and see what it says here. Okay. Here it says to you, hemophilia is a sex-linked trait. As soon as you see that word, you must think XX, right? And you must think XY. That's how you're going to start. Okay. Where XH, the capital letter, is a normal blood clotting. Now it's giving you, okay, the capital letter, it tells you that it's dominant. All right? Those who have the small letter, sorry about that, that is a recessive trait. All right, it is recessive. Okay, now let's go through the questions. A woman. So what do we start? I'm asking for the genotypes. A woman, XX, she's a woman, okay. She has normal blood clotting, okay. Now she's normal. A woman who is normal has 2 options. She can be a purebred normal, or she can be hiding the trait. Because remember, we can hide, we can carry. Now, let's read the rest of the sentence. Whose father had hemophilia. So, she is normal, which means she's carrying the capital letter. She's normal. But it says to you, it gives you a hint. All right? her father had hemophilia. So if her father had hemophilia, the chances are that she is carrying the gene. All right, so what is she now? She is normal. She doesn't have hemophilia, all right, but she is carrying that gene, which means that her son now stands a chance of becoming a hemophiliac. Okay, let's look at the next one. I'm sorry. A normal man whose father had hemophilia. All right, a normal man. That's where you stop. This doesn't make any difference. Doesn't make any difference. He's a man and he is normal. That's it. You cannot have anything on the Y. So his options are limited. For the male, his only other option was that one. He can either be normal or he can be affected. He cannot be a carrier. So for the fact that his father had hemophilia was of no, all right, consequence whatsoever. All right? He is normal. He cannot carry that other characteristic. Okay, so we're going to try again. What is a probability that a mating between these two individuals will produce a child, regardless of sex, that is hemophilia? Okay, so what was the lady? Okay, she was normal, but we knew her father had it, so the chances are that she is carrying it. Okay, this is her genotype. He is normal. X, H, X, oh, sorry, oopsie. All right. There we go. Y. What do we know about the Y? Doesn't carry anything. Now what they want to know, right, I'm not going to write all the meiosis and everything again. I'm going to go straight to the Punnett square. All right? They want to know, doesn't matter whether it's a boy or a girl, what chances are that their children, all right, so she's heterozygous, he, there we go, nothing on the Y, nothing on the Y. Men were not born to shop. When you shop, you carry a lot of things. Ladies, we are born to shop. We can carry loads of stuff. H, okay, let me try, there we go. There we go. All right, so we've got a female that is normal. Capital H. All right, what have we got? A female that is a carrier. Still normal. A male that is normal. Okay. All right. So if we have a look at these, what do we get? Okay. My genotype. 2. Okay, so actually it's 1. Let's go. 1 XX HH. All right. 1 female carrier, still normal. 1 male normal. 1 male who has hemophilia. The question is, what is the probability that a mating between these two individuals will produce a child regardless of sex that has hemophilia? And if we look at percentages, a 25% chance. All right? 25% chance that the child, usually the boy, as you can see, all right, is going to have hemophilia. Okay. Now it asks you, if the couple had a daughter, what is the probability that the daughter will be a carrier of the hemophilia trait? What is the probability that the daughter will have hemophilia? Have a look, we've done it. Look at the daughters. Here are my 2 daughters. All right? So the question was, if they had a daughter, what chance would she be of being a carrier? Okay, so there's my 100%, 50% chance. Okay, 50% chance. They didn't ask you all the children, the daughter. What probability would she have of being a carrier? 50%. What is the probability that a daughter will have hemophilia? 0%. Okay, 0%. For a daughter to have hemophilia, all right, the father must be a hemophiliac and the mother must be carrying, all right, because that's how it's going to come through. Okay, last thing I want to go through, all of the crosses that we have done, all of the things that we've done, sex determination, all right, sex-linked traits, complete, incomplete, we can give you the information in a different form. Please, please, please get used to what is called a pedigree chart. A pedigree chart shows you, all right, it will show you two things. Usually, males versus females. Let's have a look at this. If we were to look at this, it's showing you, this is, all the squares are males. So if it's a square, it is a male. All right? All the circles are showing you, oopsie daisy, let's try again. Circles are females. Okay. Then they can show you particular traits. All right? They can show you any kind of things. And through your being able to understand your monohybrid crosses, you should be able then to give certain information from your, all right, from your questions that's asked. Let's look at this quickly. Just have a look. I'm going to show you a pedigree chart. Here we go. The diagram below shows the inheritance of eye color. Okay? The squares, all the squares represent men. All right? It tells you men. And the circles, women. So the circles, women. Now you see some squares are colored, some circles are colored, but some squares aren't, some circles aren't. So this coloring in must mean something. Let's carry on reading. It says here, the individuals represented in shaded symbols have brown eyes, and the unshaded symbols have blue eyes. All right? So, that would be brown. All of those would be brown. Okay? Then it says to you, all right, the unshaded symbols have blue eyes. So those are all blue. Now, they give you a very important.
I think we're going to
Are we
run
out of time? Oh, yo.
We're
Okay.
running out of time.
Next week. We got one more next week.
One more next week. Well,
Yes.
guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much, Cheryl.
Thank you.
Unforeseen circumstances.
Croak,
Or
croak.
unforeseen circumstances
Croak,
get
croak.
better. We'll see you some other time. Guys, thank you so much. Remember, this show was probably brought to you by the Department of Basic Education, and we love you guys. Enjoy your evening. We've got exciting competitions that are happening on our Facebook page, including the Be a Bright Spark. So enter right now and don't miss out. We love you guys, and we're leaving you in. Peace.